So if you missed it last week, there was this shocking video. It appeared from Fulton County, Georgia. It appeared to show ballot workers taking boxes of previously uncounted ballots out from beneath the table and then counting them after the room had been cleared of election observers. The voice narrating that video was Jacki Deason, lawyer and host of the Jacki Daily Show. Jacki joins us today to talk about that tape and, more importantly, the most damning claims in the election fraud lawsuit currently happening in Georgia right now. Before we jump in, this video is sponsored by Ring. Jacki, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Good to see you.
So why don't we start with sort of your recap of what exactly that tape was showing, because I don't want to mischaracterize it.
Right. So what I did was narrate the tape for the Georgia State Legislature, specifically the Senate, showing what was happening at State Farm Arena, specifically between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. on election night. We looked there because we had affidavits from witnesses who were Republican observers who said there was an announcement that went out to the press, to the room, saying that counting was done for the night. At 10:30, everyone came back at 8:30. So everyone left. Our observers left. Frankly, they have no legal right to be present if there's no counting going on. They can't stand guard over the ballots all night, legally, so they left. But then they received a press tip that, in fact, counting had continued after they left. So they went back to State Farm Arena when they learned this around 1 o'clock in the morning. And sure enough, the security guard, who wouldn't let them in at first, but finally, after some negotiation, took them upstairs, said, yeah, the people just left like 5 minutes ago. So we went to the tape, and sure enough, the tape confirmed exactly what they told us. So we told the legislature.
Okay, so the response from the Georgia Secretary of State, Gabriel Sterling, and his office, Sterling, he suggested that, well, it appears that it was true that perhaps people were told to leave. There's controversy over this from state election officials. They originally said, no, nobody was told to leave. Then they said, well, maybe people were told to leave, but then there was a state election monitor who was present the whole time. His statement is that the real question is about the ballots themselves. So in the video, it appears that there are these boxes of ballots that are underneath the table. You had said suitcases in the narration. They said it was cases. Doesn't really matter. There are these boxes of ballots. According to Sterling, there were monitors and observers who were there when these ballots were originally put into the boxes, and everybody knew the ballots were in the boxes, and everything is on tape anyway. So is the allegation that these ballots that were then processed were fraudulent? What's the actual allegation about the processing of the ballots that were under the table in the boxes?
The truth is, no one knows what those ballots were, because even when our observers were there and the press were there, they were kept back so far, like 40 to 100 feet away, they could not possibly see what those ballots were. This was a continuing complaint of the Republican Party all the way through early voting, all the way through Election Day, in counties across Georgia. We had the affidavits. Our observers were not permitted to even be where they could see what was going on. Some of the scanners in the room were behind a wall. They didn't even know they were there until the spokesperson told them that evening. So the truth is, they could have all been marked for Biden. Our observers without binoculars and without moving their angle wouldn't know the difference. So it's kind of a worthless, meaningless point, because we've been complaining about this all along. Perhaps, yes, the ballots were there or packed in front of them, but to us that holds no meaning. It doesn't change the fact they broke the law. They cannot count the ballots without the public being permitted to view the proceedings under Georgia law. You may not mislead the observers in the press into leaving. And by the way, CNN, ABC, NBC, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported that the spokesperson for the Elections Department told the press that they were sending everyone home or stopping counting at 10:30 that night. So for the Secretary of State to claim that no one was told they were going to stop counting is just false. And even a simple Google search would rebut that. Also, they said their monitor was there all the time. The monitor says in a fact check story that, in fact, he didn't get there until 11:52 p.m. That's about an hour and a half after they announced for everyone to leave. So he says himself he was not there. Also, about 20 minutes after he gets there, a deputy chief investigative officer arrives from the Secretary of State's office. Why? Why would you make an announcement to the press, we're stopping counting at 10:30, and then send your deputy chief investigative officer to State Farm Arena after midnight? I think it's because the monitor called him, but we don't know that yet. But all of that is suspicious. And the Secretary of State's waving his hands like nothing to see here. That's like, fact checking with him is like asking him to grade his own work.
So
I mean, go ahead.
Would there be any way to verify the falsity or fraud of the ballots at this point? I mean, it sounds as though it's almost unfalsifiable, given the fact that the signatures, in my understanding, is in Georgia, the signatures are separated from the ballots for purposes of anonymity, typically. And now the signatures have been separated from the ballots, and you can't match them back up with the ballots they were with. So unless the numbers didn't match, unless there were fewer signatures than ballots, for example, then you'd be able to tell. But if the numbers are the same, then is the allegation that there could have been substitution, or that the original ballots as submitted were not legit in the signature verification?
We have several allegations that hit all points of that. But what I would say to you is, under Georgia law, what the president has to show is not that those people would have voted for him had they been real ballots or had they been counted fairly. He only has to show that there were illegally counted ballots that are beyond the margin of victory. If we cannot prove, if this wasn't done consistent with law, with our observers observing or the state monitor observing, and we cannot prove that those were legal ballots, they are in question. So it's sufficient to overturn the election.
We'll jump right back into this with Jacki. First, I got to tell you about Ring. Well, it is doorbell season. It's that busy time of year at your front door. That means there are a lot of packages, a lot of people at that front door. And for me, I've always wanted to keep an eye on what's going on in my home. Plus, I have 3 kids under the age of 7. They outnumber me. I need to keep an eye on them at all times. This is why I need Ring. With Ring, you can keep an eye on all of the hustle and bustle at your house, no matter where you are, directly from your phone. If somebody stops by, if something is going on, Ring will let you know. You can see and speak to whoever is there from anywhere, anytime. This holiday season, it's not just the best time to have Ring, it's a fantastic time to give it to someone as well. Ring makes the perfect holiday gift, so this holiday season, give somebody that gift of peace of mind. Ring has security products for every corner of your home, inside and out. Best of all, you can see it all in the Ring app. When we moved, first thing my wife said is, let's get those Ring devices on the house, and thus we did. Keep track of my kids that way, keep track of my house that way. Ring has everything you need to keep an eye on your home this holiday season and throughout the year. See and speak to whoever is at your door from anywhere with those video doorbells. Keep an eye on every corner of the home with easy-to-install indoor and outdoor cams. Help protect that whole home with Ring Alarm, powerful, affordable, whole home security system you can easily install yourself. So for a limited time, head on over to ring.com/Ben for special holiday offers. Again, that's ring.com/Ben. The allegations that are made about this particular tape, I know that there is one outstanding Georgia lawsuit. It was originally filed last week, late Friday, not the Crack and Sidney Powell lawsuit, which was dismissed, but the one that was filed on Friday by Rudy Giuliani and the actual Trump legal team. They had forgotten to pay some sort of filing fee. They refiled it as of yesterday, and it's now under consideration. Is all of this included in that lawsuit?
All of it is included in the suit, and actually the suit was going forward before we had the video. Based on very cut and dried points, such as about 2,500 felons voted, about 66,000 underage people voted, about 5,000 voters voted who had left Georgia and registered in another state. Under Georgia law, that means you're automatically disqualified from voting, and so much more. I would say over 100,000 people are listed here who illegally voted, who should not have voted. And that's all the president has to show to either get a new election or to certify the current one.
So have those votes actually been tabulated, meaning that when we look at the final voter count that has been certified by the state of Georgia, and they've now done, I believe, 3 recounts of the votes, the numbers that you're mentioning, those are included in that final voter count is the allegation?
Correct.
Okay, so
yes.
What is the state of Georgia's response to all of this? And what's the defense been? Because if you can name the voters who are voting fraudulently, and it should be pretty easy to substantiate people who are registered out of state voting in the election, or people who are underage. But I mean, we know when people are born. So what has their response been?
So far, they haven't responded because we just filed it Friday night. So let's see what happens. We'll find out soon because we'll have an expedited process because we have to.
So
given the circumstances.
So what is the timeline on this particular lawsuit? Because even folks who have been, fairly staunchly defensive of the Georgia electoral system, folks like Eric Erickson down in Georgia, even he has said this is easily the most well-predicated lawsuit that he has seen filed at this point. And it is worthy of note that the veracity of this lawsuit has nothing to do with whatever is going on in Pennsylvania or Arizona, and it may not even turn the election more broadly, given the fact that Trump would actually have to win Georgia and Arizona and Pennsylvania in order to win the election. So when we're talking about this lawsuit, we're just talking about proper ballots being counted and improper ballots not being counted. So everybody should be on the side of that. What is the path forward for the lawsuit? What's the timeline given the safe harbor provisions in law?
I think it's difficult to say. The judge has the discretion to expedite the process, which we think is almost certain. I'm told the Secretary of State has waived, excuse me, his 5 days that he has to respond. Normally he gets 5 days automatically because he's the state. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here and how quickly it can move. It might be advantageous for a judge to sit still until the time is passed, the December 14 deadline. Even then, it's the opinion of our lawyers, it's still alive. We want to litigate to the truth no matter what, because the relief asked for in the petition is not just about the election. It's about forcing the Secretary of State to do his job and get all of these illegal people off the rolls, first of all. And that would be in time for the Senate elections, by the way, getting these people off the rolls. That would be super valuable right away, because you see how close the Senate was in the first go-round.
And
so,
again, I think that it's important to recognize that a well-predicated lawsuit is worthwhile here, regardless of your political opinions about the outcome of the election. I mean, everybody should be on board with, if voter fraud and voter irregularity are shown, the state doing its job. Why do you think it is? Obviously, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories that have been put out there. I'm not a conspiracy theorist and don't tend to believe in them, about Brian Kemp and Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State, being somehow bought and paid for. I don't tend to believe that stuff. What do you think is the motivation here? Is it just that they're defensive of the Georgia legal system? Have they not been shown the evidence? What do you think is the holdup here?
You don't need to go as far as to say there's a conspiracy or something, an international payoff or something like that. Really, it might be as simple as they are politicians just like the people in D.C. who, when they fall under pressure from people like Stacey Abrams and the Democrat Party, capitulate in a settlement agreement earlier in the year that loosened the standards for absentee ballots, which is where most of the fraud is. And now they have to own what happened. They don't want to have to own that Georgians' votes, the Georgian election might have been stolen under their watch. I think it's as simple as that. They don't want to take accountability for their actions or inaction.
And so final question for you, Jacki Deason. She is, of course, the former counsel to the chairman of the U.S. House Subcommittee on the Constitution, and she's a senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. So final question. There's been a lot of talk in Republican circles about Republicans boycotting the Senate elections in January. I cannot think of something possibly more counterproductive. Just wanted to get your opinion on that piece of inanity.
Nothing could be worse than the Republicans stay home. That guarantees a win for the Democrats for the 2 Senate races. I have no idea why anyone would recommend that step. Even though it's true, there are irregularities. This is a loosey-goosey process. You do have a Secretary of State who's not doing his job, in my opinion. And I think we've proved that. I understand. But you don't protest that by throwing away the U.S. Senate. You achieve nothing. So please, Georgians, show up to vote. Show up to vote. Despite the imperfections, we have to show up and fight for that Senate. No compromises.
Jacki, thanks again for joining me. If you want to hear more from Jacki Deason, check out her show, The Jacki Daily Show. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thank you, Ben.
So what do you guys think? Is this the supposed Kraken? Is this going to have any effect on the Georgia election results? Let me know what you think in the comments down below.